It's the Billy Graham Boxing Podcast, The Preacher's Sermons.
Episode 5 of Billy Graham's Boxing Podcast, and as usual, we're here in Billy's conservatory. How are things, Billy?
Okay, cheers, thanks.
Good. Spur of the moment won this today. Not entirely sure what's going to happen, what we're going to end up talking about.
Me neither.
But that's why we like boxing, is that you never know what's going to happen. You ready?
As ready as I'll ever be today.
Billy, have you ever been in a position where you've been a mandatory challenger for a title, but you've been forced into a wait of a year or more?
I actually think the only time when we had to wait was the return with Roccagiani. But I think a lot of that was to do with Carl, the injured shoulder, taking so long to heal. Because we didn't rush it, he did everything what the specialist said, so we took our time and that. So it was quite a long time before we fought Roccagiani, and Roccagiani was fighting a lot of people, making a lot of defences, but I don't think that was anybody's fault. I think it was probably because of the injury.
Yeah.
And when we was managing for Costa Zuno, we got the shot. I can't remember being waiting around like some of the guys are today.
Well, that's what
I don't think so. Off the top of my head, I don't think so.
That's what I was going to come to, because in the last week we've had the announcement that Alexander Usyk is going to fight Derek Chizora. Now Usyk, because he was a WBO champion at a lower weight, he could call a straight shot at the WBO world title, but he's not. He's fighting Derek Chizora. We've got Liam Williams, who's fighting in a couple of weeks, who's been mandatory for coming up to 11 months now.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah,
there's no real sign.
The Liam Williams one is, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. And we've had Jack Catterall, who's been mandatory for over a year, and it finally seems like Jack Catterall's going to get a shot next time. So we've got 3 different fighters there who've all been mandatory challengers for a year around that, with no real sign of them getting the shots.
Well, Jack Catterall, I'm a big Jack Catterall fan. I actually think that I'm actually glad that Jack's had to wait a little bit longer, because he's young. He's young, and I didn't want him to be rushed, to be honest with you. As long as he's getting better in the gym, and like he's had a couple of in-between fights and that, I'm kind of glad, because Jack's only going to get better. You know what I mean? And I didn't want him to get a shot too soon, because I think Catterall's a great fight. You know, he could be a real great fighter.
There's something there with Jack, and I think.
So I'm glad about that. I'm glad he's been made to wait. I'm sure he isn't, but I'm kind of glad about it. I didn't want him to get there too soon.
Jack's not happy, but there's something there with Jack, isn't it? And I think he's the type of lad who, when he gets his biggest challenge, you'll see the best Jack Catterall you've ever seen. If you look at him, he's a southpaw. He can be aggressive. He can be patient. He's got power.
Yeah.
Like you said in the last episode with Paul Smith, I think he handles it very well. You know, he won't be faced by the situation. He'll take it all in his stride.
No, that's right.
I think there's plenty more to see.
He'll take it all in his stride, and I think he'll grab the opportunity with both hands when he's finally got it. I'm kind of glad that he's had to wait.
Yeah, but like I said, there's different ways of looking at it.
But that's the only reason. I mean, if you're a mandatory challenger, you should get a straight shot. Simple as.
But there's different ways of looking at this long wait, isn't there? Like with Jack, you think Jack will benefit from.
I think Jack will benefit from it,
as
long as he stayed in the gym and that, you know what I mean, and carry on learning. I think he'll benefit from it.
Liam Williams, on the other hand, he's ready to go, isn't he?
Yeah. Liam Williams. Yeah, I love Liam Williams. Liam Williams is as tough as what he looks. He really is. You know what I mean? He really is as tough as what he looks. And recently, I've seen him improve no end. He had them 2 good fights with William Smith, especially the first one was a fantastic fight. I was rooting for Liam Smith at them fights, because I've got a lot of history with the Smiths. I've known him since he was a young boy, so I was on Liam Smith's side for them fights, you know what I mean? But I've watched Liam Williams get so much better now from then. He's a much better fighter at middleweight. He seems to be doing good Oliver. Like I say, he's tough. That, without a doubt, he's tough. Everybody knows he's tough, but he's a real good boxer as well.
What would you put that?
And he's getting a better boxer. He's becoming a better boxer as well.
Because Liam is the same person. I've been speaking to Liam for a long time. Exactly the same person as he's always been. But he just seems to have captured everyone's imagination. I think part of it's down to he says exactly what he thinks. He puts things bluntly. If you sign a contract to fight Liam Williams, it's as if you've insulted his family. He takes it deadly seriously, doesn't he, from the minute the ink dries on the contract.
Yeah.
And I think people have just liked seeing someone, because there's so much bullshit in boxing, isn't there, these days? People talking around subjects. Liam says what he wants.
And then delivers it.
And delivers it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people like about him.
Yeah, he's a real fighter. And I just think he's improved no end. I hope he doesn't. I know he says he can still make light middleweight, but I hope he doesn't go down on that road again. I'm really glad for him. I've watched him improve. Just relatively recently, become a much better fighter, and that's the good thing. That's the good thing to see when you see somebody changing, getting better, adding to his game, and that. I think he's a great fighter. So it's a bit of a travesty that he's had to wait this long.
He's the perfect example of what you say about people not killing themselves to make weight. Look at the difference in the energy about him, the liveliness, as you put it, from just those 6 extra pounds from light middle to middle.
Yeah, of course. He must have been killing himself to make. It's all right saying you can still make the weight. You can make any weight you want, but he's performing at the weight. Yeah. I mean, surely he must know how well he feels, how much better he feels, and he's only got to watch. He's only got to watch himself how much better he looks. He's becoming a real all-round fighter. No, I mean he's ready for the shot.
Just so happens he's got possibly the most awkward fighter for his style in Demetrius Andrade.
Yeah, I wish he was fighting somebody a little bit more traditionally, if you like. You know what I mean? Andrade is, although he's very effective, he's not somebody I particularly want to watch. And I think he'll just try and tie Liam up in knots. It wouldn't have been my choice, as for who he's going against. I think it's a bit of a nightmare. You know what I mean? I don't think it'll make for a good-looking fight, because Andrade doesn't really make for good-looking fights, and I'd rather see Liam against somebody else, really. But it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Now the third one on the list is Usyk. Now, experience-wise, ability-wise, Usyk could have gone straight into a fight with Joshua, as he's mandatory, and been able to hold his own. I've got no doubts about that. I think it's wise that he's just taken his time. He's fighting Derek Chizora just to get used to that contact of being in there with a heavyweight. We've seen him fight Joe Joyce years ago, but to do it with 10-ounce gloves against a guy who's going to come to a fight like Chizora, I think it'll just do him a world of good.
Yeah, I do. I actually do. Like I said, I think it's done. I think it will have done Jack Catterall good. I don't think it's doing Liam Williams any good. But I think it is helping Usyk, really, easing his way into the division. I know he's fought in the division in the amateurs, but this is a little bit different, So I think it's good that Usyk's easing himself into it. I think Chizora is the perfect fight for Usyk, to be honest with you. I like Derek. Oh, you can't not like Derek Chizora. You know what I mean? I love him a bit.
It reminds me of one of those lunatic 80s heavyweights, Chizora.
Yeah, you can't help liking him. He's entertainment. He's good to watch fight as well. And I think but I've got to say, I think it's a good fight for Usyk.
Yeah, he should look good doing it, but you can guarantee he's going to.
I think he's a little bit quick for Derek.
Yeah, but he's going to have to fight at some point.
At some point.
If Derek's losing every second, he's going to the way Derek Chisora is now, the way he's come back from all those defeats.
Yeah.
He will have a real go at some point.
Oh, of course.
Usyk will get a nice feel for the heavyweights. Plus, what's the rush at heavyweight? He's got all the time in the world, hasn't he, to grow into a big, strong guy. Let the other guys fight it out between themselves, and Usyk's in a perfect position to just get past Chizora and see what happens.
Yeah, there's not really, there isn't really a rush. Hey, and listen, Derek's in with a shout anyway. You know what I mean? Derek can fight, he can punch. He's certainly going to give it his all. I think it'll be an interesting fight. I think it'll be quite an entertaining fight. I just think that he's a little bit. I think Usyk's a little bit maybe too shifty for him and that, you know.
Yeah. He will.
And he's in no rush. I mean, Usyk's not in any rush because you know, with all this shite going on about how Anthony Joshua's not fighting Fury, Fury's not, you know, that let's get that on. Let's do that and sort of heavyweights.
Something caught your eye this week, didn't it? Fury's trainer, Sugar Hill, said something that was music to your ears.
Yeah, for Anthony Joshua to give the belts up. I don't care if they both give the belts up, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, because if them two fought with none of them belts on the line, they know that they're the two best heavyweights in the world, and everybody will know that whoever wins that fight is the unified champion of the world. Everybody will know that. Then everybody else can fight it, get all the other belts, and become challengers. I'm sick to death of governing bodies ruining. You know, mind you can't put it on yet because of the lockdown and because of the way things are going. But trust me, if there was no lockdown, they'd still be farting around.
Yeah. And another little bit of news before we end part one. Very quick turnaround, it seems for me. You know, Dillian Whyte, depending on whose version of events you choose to believe, he was either suffered a very bad knockout or he was fighting to get up at the count of 8, Billy. But his rematch with Alexander Povetkin's been signed for November.
Well, I find it really bad for Alexander Povetkin to have to fight him again, to be honest with you, because it was a conclusive finish. I know it would have been in the contract that they have to fight again, but let's face it. I mean, Povetkin's 41. He can't do any more. He can't do better than what he's just done. He deserves a shot. He shouldn't have to fight. He shouldn't have to fight it again. You know, unless I don't know. Maybe they got the return because Eddie said he got up at the count. He got up at the count of 8. You know, and maybe that's why he deserves the rematch. But
he was watching it on the half speed, I think.
But I think only Eddie saw that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think even Dillian would admit that was a. Do you know what?
He was still asleep, but it was the count of 8.
Dillian Whyte, he's taken that defeat pretty well, I think. You know, no messing around. Yeah, he beat me on that night. He was straight back in the gym and jumped at a rematch. So fair play to Dillian Whyte, because we complain about people dodging tough fights, and although I think it's a quick turnaround, fair play to Dillian for wanting to jump straight back in.
Yeah, I'm certainly not having a pop at Derek.
Dillian.
At Dillian, no, without a doubt. I just think it's Povetkin's got the raw deal.
Yeah, that's part one. Part two, two-parter this week. We're going to concentrate on getting through a load of your questions because we've got a big backlog to get through. So that's coming up next. Right, this is part 2 of the Billy Graham Boxing Podcast. You've been inundating us with the questions. We've got loads, preacherspod@gmail.com, plenty on Twitter, and a couple of you text me as well. So we're just going to spend the entire second half getting through those, Billy. We'll whip through them. We get loads of questions on Ricky, but we're going to cover those as the podcast goes on, aren't we?
Okay.
But this one struck me as being good. Dave Eyes was watching some Arturo Gatti fights, and he was wondering just how close Ricky ever came to fighting Arturo.
Actually, pretty close, I think. I think we was going to fight him if he'd have beaten Baldomir.
Yeah, he fought Baldomir at welterweight.
And I think if Gatti would have won that fight, we would have fought him. I'm a huge Arturo Gatti fan. I'm sure anybody who watches boxing has got to be a huge Arturo Gatti fan. And them two, God, that would have been a fight. You know what I mean? They both like to come forward, obviously. You know what I mean? And they both have a fight. That would have been great. It would have been great for the fans. We'd have had it, that's for sure. We'd have definitely taken it.
At welter.
Oh, was that welter when he
Yeah,
fought
he was
Baldomir?
fighting at welter, because I know you thought Ricky was a a career light welter, weren't you? Would the money have been good enough to get you up to welter to fight Gatti?
I never wanted to be at welterweight. The only reason I wanted to be at welterweight was to fight Floyd Mayweather. That was the only fight I was interested in at welterweight. And if it had beaten Mayweather, well, I probably would have wanted him to retire if it had beaten Mayweather. But I'd have definitely made him move back down to light welter. Like I didn't want the Collazo fight, you know. So I'm not so sure at welterweight. But as a one-off, I'd have probably gone up to welter because Gatti had moved up through the division. So yeah, I would have took that fight at welterweight, but I wouldn't have stayed at welterweight. But I would have took the fight.
I love Gatti, but I loved him when he was at super feather and lightweight. I thought that's when he was at his best. He was perhaps a little bit past his best at that point because we'd gone through the hell with Mickey Ward, and you met Mickey Ward once, didn't you, in Boston?
Yeah, I met Mickey Ward a couple of times. The first time I met him in Boston, he was asking me, I was being interviewed.
Was it Ron Borges?
From Ron Borges, and Mickey was waiting. I could see he was waiting to talk to me, and Ricky wasn't there. I don't think anybody else was there, and he pulled me, Mickey, said he wanted to fight Ricky, and I says, you know, well, yeah, Ricky would love to fight you, you know, and that's basically that's probably about as far as it got. And then he turned up at an after fight party in Vegas. After the Castillo fight, I think it was. He was a bit drunk then, but he wanted the Ricky Hatton fight. That would have been a terrible fight as well, you know.
You'd have been confident of winning.
I would have been confident of him beating both guys.
But what's the factor?
The thing what feared me, I think, look, Ricky Hatton's better in any department than Mickey Ward, but his courage, Mickey Ward's courage feared me a little bit, you know what I mean? Gatti is a little bit the same, but I think Gatti was a little bit slight for Ricky anyway, you know what I mean? I think he'd have beaten both of them. I think Mickey Ward would have been a little bit harder, to be honest with you. They'd have both been fantastic fights while they lasted, but I think Ricky would have... I think he'd have stopped Gatti.
Well, my opinion from watching it, I think Ricky might have got to... Arturo always got hurt with left hooks to the body, even off people like Manfredi used to hurt him to the body. I think Ricky would have got Arturo with body shots.
I think he would have. I think he'd have stopped him.
I think he would have been too cute boxing wise for Mickey Ward. I think it would have gone like that.
Yeah, he's a better boxer than both guys, to be honest with you. But they're two guys who I really admire. You know, and they'd have been edge of your seat stuff while they lasted. But I think he'd have beat both of them.
He would. Next question from Paul Wells. Billy, if you could choose one fighter operating today to train, who would it be?
Oh God, well, it's a bit weird this. I mean, obviously, I think the best fighter on the planet, now Golovkin's a little bit slipping. I think Lomachenko is certainly the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet, but I sort of say to myself, oh, yeah, but what could I teach him? Yeah. But what could I teach him? And, you know, the guy's a magician. It's like Nassim Hamed. You know, Nassim Hamed was a great friend of mine, and that, and I was involved with the Hamids a little bit. And but I think if I'd have been asked to train Nas, I think I would have refused, because same again. What could I have taught Nas, except maybe about nutrition or something like that? You know, there's certainly nothing I could tell him what to do, because him and Lomachenko both do their own thing. So, but if you're asking me, whose corner would I like to be in and that, I think you've got to be Lomachenko.
I reckon you'd get even more pleasure from trying to beat Lomachenko.
I don't know if pleasure's the right word.
No, you know, like something to get your teeth into.
It's certainly something to get your teeth into. It'd be like trying to unravel a ball of string, and I'm not good at that.
You like the challenge of taking on these guys.
God, I love the challenge. But funny enough, I was going to say an insurmountable one, but funny enough, the two fights just mentioned, Lomachenko and Nas is probably the only featherweight who I'd actually say that could have done Lomachenko, because I've always said that Lomachenko, you've got to knock him out while he's at his peak. You know, only Father Time or people who are much bigger than him. All the lightweights are bigger than him anyway. He's fighting in his wrong division now. Only Father Time or size is going to be Lomachenko.
Or a knockout puncher.
Or somebody who can knock him out. You got to take him out, you know. And I suppose anybody can be knocked out. Nas certainly had that firepower. He could knock anybody out when he was at his best. So that'd have been one to watch.
Just a few other little names, Paul. I was thinking of fighters who I think Billy would like. So just give me whether I'm right, Billy, in saying you'd have liked these lads in the gym. I think you'd have loved Diego Corrales.
Oh, Corrales was one of my favourites. God, I can't forget that Castillo-Corrales fight. That was unbelievable. One of the best fights I've ever seen. But yeah, I love Corrales. A tall puncher. I love tall punchers. Yeah. I've never really had the opportunity to train one. One guy I had, Nicky Boyd, he could really punch. He was a tall, skinny guy. He had bad hands though. Yeah, I'd have loved to have trained a tall fighter who could hit. And that, you know what I mean?
For the same reason, I got Callum Smith down.
Oh.
Same sort of reason. Different fighter than Diego, but a tall predator.
Yeah, I love to watch Callum Smith. I love tall punchers. I think it's a real advantage if you're tall, as long as you can hit. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I've just never, like I said, I've never really had the opportunity. But I'd have loved to have trained someone like Callum Smith. Absolutely, yeah.
Best body puncher in the world, I think, at the minute. Inoue.
Oh God. He's one of my favourite fighters. And if there's one thing what I'm really annoyed about is that I never trained a bantamweight champion of the world. I don't know what it is. There's always something about the bantamweights for me. It's just like when I was growing up, I was a big Alan Rudkin fan, and he fought Lionel Rose, who was absolutely beautiful. He fought Fighting Arada, and then he fought Ruben Oliveras. And then when I seen Ruben Oliveras, I completely fell in love with bantamweights. And I've watched them ever since. And the little Japanese guy. He's one of my favourite. I forgot all about him. He's one of my favourite fighters. Great body puncher, he can knock you out anywhere. He's one of my favourite fighters.
And tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. Not just picking him because he's a light welterweight, but smart guy, clever guy, good fun to be around, but aggressive, heavy-handed. I think you'd like Regis Prograis.
I do like Regis Prograis. I think the Scotsman beat him though. I think it was the right decision. But yeah, Prograis. I think Prograis is a great fighter. He's good. He's nice and loose. He's got good rhythm and that. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of ability. He can hit. He's a good boxer. Yeah, I like Prograis.
There you go, Paul. Now we get plenty of questions asking us to do a show purely on animals. Now we can't do that. So Verity, I've just picked your name. You're one of the people who mentioned that. We're going to do a little question on the animals. Billy, I want you to tell people the story about the pet shop in Salford when you and your mate Piggy went in for a look.
Oh God. That was ridiculous. You mean the one down Whit Lane, don't you? I know the one you mean. Yeah. Right. There's this. I'm going back years now. You know what I mean? Probably just left school. And there was a pet shop. It wasn't just a pet shop. He was a reptile and he was an animal dealer. But we'd never been to this pet shop before. We knew where it was, and the guy who owned it, the reptile dealer, his name was Billy Graham, but in fact it wasn't. That was his wrestling name. He was a wrestler. His name's Graham Tyler. This might be the first he knows about this. Anyway, we went into this pet shop, and it was completely unbelievable. The guy had been bit off a puffer head. His finger was about that long. He could have killed him, but the guy was tough as fuck. Anyway, so he goes in. They got 2 Himalayan bears there, toucans, monkeys. The rules was different them days. I don't know. They mustn't need any licenses or nothing then. Anyway, it was tankfuls of rattlesnakes, tankfuls of deadly puff adders, cobras. Don't know if there's any mambas there. I'm not sure, but cobras.
Any apes?
Yeah, apes, yeah, there was a little ape there, but every time I looked at it, he'd growl with his big fangs. It was unbelievable. Then the bird room was upstairs, huge monitor lizards. There was all kinds of stuff, but you didn't see in the pet shop.
And this was just a corner shop in Salford.
This was a corner shop, but was just like open all hours, Arkwright, just on a corner shop of a street in Whit Lane, terraced houses. This was on the corner of the shop, and they had alligators, crocodiles, of all different kinds, and he had loads of them, tortoises, terrapins, everything you could talk about, you know what I mean? But yeah, bears and all that lot. So we called in this day, and anyway, so the guy comes down, Billy comes down, talking to us, and that, you know what I mean? I'm chatting away.
With his finger all wrapped up.
With his finger with a bandage on it, his finger like that. So he said, so he got chatting, and he kind of knew that I knew my stuff because I was obsessed with it then, herpetology, and he knew that I knew my stuff, and so he says, listen, me and Pighead, the guy who painted my arms, so he said, listen lads, I've got to go to the airport to pick a shipment, the tortoise is up, will you look after the shop till I come back? So we looked at each other, we went, yeah, of course. And he says, I might give you a week's work. Well, my finger's bad and that, obviously. So he went, okay. So anyway, he goes out, goes to the airport. Immediately, as soon as he'd got in his car going off, Piggy says to me, right, what we do? Should we nick what we can now? And just fuck off like and that. And I went, you know what? I said, I like the idea of working here with these animals for a week, and I won't mind that. I says, so we'll stay here, we'll get a week's work out of him, and we'll just nick things daily. And that's what we did.
What did you get out of it?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. God, I hope he's not watching this. Snakes, tree frogs. I remember Piggy, I got him to nick me a chameleon, and he had one of these anoraks, one of the parkas they was called, and it had a zip pocket at the front like that. So we'd be talking to Billy as we'd be going and that, as we'd be leaving and everything, and we stood there and he starts chatting with us, and I could see this fucking chameleon moving around at his coat. You know what I mean? I thought, God no, I hope we don't look at that. But yeah, we just basically nicked what we could daily. And that.
There you go, Verity. Darren, who does a lot of work for us on the podcast, and I believe he's going into it full time now, so if you've got a podcast, give Darren a shout. He says, if you could bring one thing, Billy, from a bygone era of boxing into modern day, what would it be? So I think he's talking things like one champion per division or 15 rounds.
Well, I was brought up, but it was one champion the division. I thought anything else would have been ludicrous. I mean, I couldn't stand it when the WBC come out and there was two champions, but gradually got used to it, and the two champions generally get it together within the year anyway, so it wasn't that bad. Because look, let's face it, if you're the champion of the world, there only can be one, because you're the champion of the world. There's only one fucking world, right? But having all these belts, everybody's making more money. Yeah. The fighters are making more money. The promoters got more to promote, so it does good economically for everybody better.
Well, going back to what we said at the start, someone like if Jack Catterall's had to wait 18 months for a shot at one of 4 belts, how long would he ever have to wait for a shot at 1 belt?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it makes sense in some ways. I just wish every 2 years they got together and crowned an undisputed champion.
Without a doubt, I'd say a little bit quicker than 2 years, to be honest with you. I think ideally, because all these different titles and that, everybody's making more money, and let's face it, it's a hard life, and you've got to make the money while you can. So it would be ridiculous. You couldn't go back to that anymore. But my problem is the champions don't all get. That should be a law. That should be a rule that the champions have got to get together and fight each other That's what the fans would love it. It would be more fascinating. It'd be great for the fans, and then find out who is the best guy in the division. You know what I mean? That's when these board of control and these governing bodies should sort something like that out. That'd be better, as long as they all fight, you know, like an eliminator.
Imagine a perfect world, Billy, where all the governing bodies synchronise the mandatories, so that 1 week after another for 4 weeks, you got the 4 belt holders fighting the mandatory challengers. Everybody got a look at them, and then the next fight was a pair of semi-finals and a final.
Well,
Wouldn't it be great?
It would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, but I'm sick of pulling my hair out, wondering when anybody is going to actually see sense. I mean, because that's in a perfect world, and that's how it should be. But boxing never does things like that.
Simplest sport in the world.
Yeah, simplest sport. It's 2 guys, simplest sport in the world. But you mentioned on 15 rounders. Then I was brought up on 15 rounders. You know, as a fan, like as a young boy and everything, and used to 15 rounders and that, you know. But I've got to be honest with you. Now I'm an older man, and the experiences I've had, I've been in, trained so many, prepared so many people to get ready for 12-round fights, title fights of various titles, you know, from British to world and the intercontinentals and that, all them 12-rounders, and now I can't believe that we used to have 15-rounders, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I can't believe how cruel 15-rounders are. I mean, so I don't think we should go back to the 15 rounds anymore. But I do think if you could trust the trainers, and the fighters to a certain extent, but most of the trainers, if you could trust them to do things right and safely, I think the weigh-ins should be the same day. Because the discrepancy about weights now is just beyond a joke, and it's encouraging people who would normally have stayed in a weight division, so it's a lot healthier, a lot more pleasant as well when you're training. I wish we could have the same day weigh-ins.
I think there's so much money involved now, and the fighters fight so infrequently. I think you'd get them starving themselves to do the weight on the same day weighing, Billy.
Well, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. If I could trust the trainers, because people used to starve themselves even when it was back in the day, but people wasn't as educated then. Yeah. People know now. They know how dangerous it is, but they still do it. I feel sorry for fighters who don't want to do it, who want to fight at the natural weight. Yeah. Because they're forced to be giving away loads of size all the time. It's just laughable. It's been brought in for a safety thing. I voted against it at the time when we all had a vote to change it to the day after, to the day before, and I actually voted against it when I knew how I could exploit that. Yeah. I really knew how to exploit the day before. Well,
that's when you were just in the infancy of perfecting weight cuts and piling it back on, weren't it?
Yeah, and the other people didn't know, but I knew that they'd abuse it. I knew that people would abuse it, and that's indeed how it's turned out. They are really abusing it, and I'm afraid it's just going to take more deaths before that anybody is going to try to solve it.
Yeah. Can you think of anything from modern boxing that you'd like to have taken back to when you were fighting, apart from the money? Apart from the money. Well, in fact, go on. What was? Can you remember the purses you used to get when you were boxing your 6 and 8 rounders?
The first professional fight.
Yeah, to give people an idea, like people listening to this, a journeyman these days, an opponent will generally take home between £1,000 and 1,200 quid.
I got 50 quid for my first pro fight.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, my mates, you know, there was all apprentices and things like that. They was on about 14 quid a week. You know what I mean? So rather than work for 14 quid a week, I'd rather get in the ring for 6 rounds and get 50. So.
Bet you were king of Salford, weren't you, that night when you had 50 quid in your pocket?
Oh, yeah.
Did you play up the black eye as well?
Hey, listen, for my first pro fight, I bought a pair of shoes belting pair of shoes from St Anne's Square. I bought a suit, white suit.
A white suit?
A white suit, yeah. Hey, I look fantastic, except for the black eye.
Man from Del Monte.
But yeah, what was the question anyway?
Anything from modern boxing you'd like to take back to your day?
Well,
It seems to me like the number of opportunities people get for titles.
there's much more opportunities now. I think, look, I'm always slagging things off. I'm definitely always slagging the governing bodies off. I'm not changing my mind there. And the Board of Control, I'm not changing my mind there. But I can't think of any time, this is the best time to be a fighter now.
Yeah.
I think it's the best time, the best opportunities. I'm always knocking things and that, but no, this is the best time to be a fighter, I'd say, than ever before.
Bill Lewis, last question then today. Billy, were you a fan of Joe Calzaghe? How would he have fared with today's super middleweights and light heavyweights? And could he have beat Andre Ward?
I think Joe Calzaghe is without a doubt an all-time great. Actually, stylistically, it wasn't really my. I mean, I like, and Joe's a mate of mine. You know what I mean? I think you've got to say that he's probably the best fighter ever to come out of this country, and that's saying something. We've had some great fighters, and so I don't say that lightly, but I think you've got to give it him.
You'd go Joe above people like Wild and Naz and people like that, and Lennox. You'd put Joe. He never lost, did he?
I think, yeah. Without a doubt, the only one who maybe have a problem with is Naz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a shout for him when on form at his best that he could have been the best fighter. Ricky Hatton's right up there as well. But then there's a lot of other great fighters. But I think you've got to give it to Joe, to be honest with you. Like I say, stylistically, it wasn't really my cup of tea. But I remember being asked this question in Vegas, and I said the same thing, the same answer. But I said but I spend loads of time thinking about if I had a fighter, if I had a super middleweight, how would I train to beat Joe Calzaghe? And I couldn't come up with anything. Yeah. I couldn't come up with anything, except the fact that you got to knock him out.
Which
wasn't
the easiest thing in the world, yeah.
No. And what did you say? Could he beat Andre Ward?
Yeah, well, I'm assuming, if saying all that, you think he would have done pretty well with today's super middleweights and light heavyweights, but Ward was probably the best of his era.
I think he'd done fantastic. I mean, I can't think of a super middleweight since Joe Calzaghe who were back against him, to be honest with you.
I think Ward's the one.
Yeah, Andre Ward is an absolutely fantastic technician, great boxer, great fighter, without a doubt. Then again, he's not really my cup of tea. He doesn't excite me, but I can appreciate how good he is. The same as Joe Calzaghe. I think Joe Calzaghe is a bit quicker. Had a little bit more urgency in his work. I'd say Joe. Yeah. I'd put my money in Joe.
Something people don't generally get to hear then. You and Ricky were coming up. Well, you and Ricky and Joe and Enzo were coming up at the same time, weren't you?
Yeah, of course.
What was the word from people who were in the gyms with Joe then? You know, people listening to this might have only seen him on Sky popping up every 3 or 4 months, or less frequently because he used to work his hands a lot. But what was the word from people in the game, people who used to see Joe in the gyms?
I know people who sparred with Joe Calzaghe.
Yeah, well, what sort of things did they say?
I used to get information from everywhere, me, and that. I used to always ask a lot of questions about anybody, even though I didn't have a super middleweight and that, but I still to know everything what was going on. But so something what did shock me, because Joe, a lot of the time it looks like he's slapping.
Yeah.
And fine, fast flurries and and then he can drop something in big, you know what I mean? But so a lot of times it looked like he was slapping. But there's a mate of mine who used to come down sparring with Carl. And Carl,
big,
Carl was heavy-handed, you know. And I remember Tony Booth used to spar with Carl. And he'd just been sparring with Joe Calzaghe, and we had a conversation because he knew Tony was a mate of mine and that. And I said, he'd just been sparring with Joe Calzaghe. He said, fucking hell, can't believe it. He said, I'll tell you now. He said, he hits harder than Carl. I said, fuck off. You know what I mean? He went, I'm telling you, Billy, he hits harder than Carl. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he was a great boxer, like lightning. You know, how he'd pull himself in and out of distance and that granite chin. Like I say...
What could he have done with good hands?
Well, he'd have been even better, wouldn't he?
Even better.
Simple, even better. And I think a little bit, making the weight a little bit better, nutrition a little bit better these days and that, you know... I think it'd be a even better fight if he was fighting now. To be honest with you, so yeah, I mean, so hard to beat. I don't know how I'd have prepared anybody to beat him, unless I'd had another absolutely great fighter as well. You know, so maybe Roy Jones at his peak. You know what I mean?
Go on, we'll squeeze that in then. I think Jones is one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I do.
You don't think he was the best light heavyweight of his time?
Oh, he's talking about Chizora.
Yeah, I'll argue with this till the day. I was going to say the day I die, but you'll probably beat me to that. But I'll argue with this one till that day. I think Jones would have took him apart.
I'm just right. Well, look, there's no way on earth I would say I could possibly say that Chizora is a better fighter than Roy Jones. After what Roy Jones is, without that, an all-time great. I'm saying stylistically, he was a nightmare for Roy Jones, an absolute nightmare for Roy Jones. He had the style to beat him. The fight was offered loads for Roy Jones. They paid massive money in Germany, and he never had it. Yeah, at the time, I said, Chizora will beat him.
I just can't see a way. I think
just stylistically.
I think he would have walked forward into everything Roy threw. I think he would have got busted up and... busted up and stopped or wide points.
I don't think it just stylistically. I've seen Chizora up close, personal, on the same bill as him. I watched all his fights anyway, and at his peak, he was very hard to beat. His pressure was so educated. Yeah. He'd have you blowing out your ass with him hardly throwing a shot. Yeah. That's how he used to do it. It was really intelligent the way that he did it. It didn't look that way. It didn't look that way, but I know what I'm looking at. And yeah, it was the pressure was so educated. Yeah.
Final question then. I know that was the final one, but I've just remembered another one. And while we're on the topic of Roy Jones, I can't remember who sent it in, but they asked your opinion on old fighters coming back because we've got. I don't want to do a full long part about Tyson and Jones because I think everyone knows what it is. But what's your opinion on these old fighters?
I'm really against it. Really against it. I mean, I was absolutely mad and looking forward. I couldn't believe that, you know, I couldn't wait for Muhammad Ali to make his comeback after the strips with his license and stuff like that, you know. Couldn't wait for him to come back, even though it was 3.5 years out. But he was only 29 when he come back. And so that's different, you know. If a fighter has retired prematurely and he's not he's not fought till the stage when he's past it, that's okay coming back then. If you're still a relatively young man and you just had a break and you might have had a couple of years off, then it's hard to do it again. Yeah. I'm not against that. But when you've been through the mill and you've been coming up and you've been at the top and then you start to slide down, what's the point of coming back?
And we're not even
once you've completed the cycle and it's you've seen better days and you're slipping, there's no coming back.
And we're not even talking about people who've just been who are in the mid-30s. We're talking about guys who are in the 50s.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Boxing is way too dangerous. I can understand and wanting the urge.
You had the urge.
The feeling.
You had the urge for years, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I still had the urge all the time. Most of the years when I was training fighters, I was frustrated. I wanted to fight. Yeah. You know, would have been stupid, but I knew I still had the urge all the time. Probably till About 40. Because I walked away before it hardly started. So that's how I explain that, you know. But so I know what the urge to get in to do it again is, you know what I mean. So I understand why they want to do it, or maybe financially. But no, there's no. I can't think of anything good to come from it. No.
And it won't be an exhibition.
Tyson and Jones will not be an exhibition.
Imagine Mike meekly accepting that Roy's too quick for him and can jab him whenever he wants. Mike won't accept that.
No.
And Roy will have to fight for his life if Tyson lands anything even remotely powerful. So there's no such thing as an exhibition for
fighters
guys
have
like
got
that.
tremendous egos, and you have to be in that business. You have to have an ego. I think you do as a coach, to be honest with you, because you've got to believe in yourself and whatever. So no, two egotistical people like Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. No, that's not going to be an exhibition.
And they're doing drug testing for this supposed exhibition.
They should give them drugs, I think.
There we go. That's the end of episode 5. Again, send your questions in. We like getting them. preacherspod@gmail.com, Twitter @preacherspod. And thanks for listening.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.